What's crazy is Modern might actually be better than we think. And no, this isn't going to be some defense of the One Ring type of video. You probably already understand what I'm going to talk about based on the title and thumbnail, because Dredge is back. And I mean in a big way. And I was really thinking about this because recently we had Dredge win the Modern Challenge. I'm like, okay, every so often an old stalwart comes back and gets a dub. I mean, heck, Merfolk wins a Modern Challenge every so often, and so does Mill. It happens, right? A good pilot, a good deck, and some good luck, it really gets there. But then I literally just played a league where I was playing my Infect games, and you'll actually probably see that next week as of recording this video, and I came up against Dredge twice, and I'm like, what is going on right now, right? So I started to do some digging, and when you really break it down, it's actually one of the single best times to be playing a graveyard deck right now. Not even just Dredge, but Vengevine. Heck, it might even be time to bring back like Rakdos Blitzball, like where you're playing like the Skelementals and everything. I mean, there isn't that much reanimation for it, but actually there is, to be fair. It's just you don't have Faithless Looting to easily put them in there. But it might actually be the great return of graveyards for a very specific couple of reasons. So let's walk through it here. It actually gets me really excited because graveyard decks being good means Mill is good, and Modern might actually have some diversity. It's spooky season, folks. Let's hop right into it. Dredge, for those of you who don't know, for you Modern Zoomers out there who have not experienced the beauty that is one of the most busted mechanics known to TCG kind, not even Magic kind. Dredge 5 allows you to replace your draws and put cards into your graveyard. It should have been a downside, but it's not, because cards can, like, essentially your graveyard is an extension of your hand. You also know this at this point. Stinkweed Imp, one of the best dredgers out there. Golgari Grave Troll, the best dredger out there. Dredge 6 is banned for multiple reasons, not just being able to dredge 6, but multiple reasons, pitching to different elementals. You know what? Golgari Grave Troll might actually just be banned because of Modern Horizons. That's a whole different discussion though. Dredge 5, Stinkweed Imp, a classic in here, flying pseudo death touch essentially. Good stuff. Now, if you look through, I kind of looked this up with Prize Amalgam, deck lists that are registering Prize Amalgam. And I'm like, okay, if you really look through it, right? Like, okay, so there's a bunch of like, you know, over this weekend, RCQs and stuff, and September, and like, it's kind of a big break. Like, it's kind of sparse. Like, there's a lot of like paper tournaments, a lot of consistent ones here, like Izzy and Brett. Like, there's a couple of like a bunch of entries. Some of these are actually double entries, I think. And then like, you know, September's like pretty sparse, and then all of a sudden you get Dredge. You get Bertram coming in first place, username Bertram coming in first place in the Modern Challenge. And a lot of this is pretty stock, right? Like you would think, you know, the Creeping Chills are there, the Cathartic Reunion to be able to draw 3 cards and engage, your Tome Scours are there instead of like something like the one mana artifact that has 3 counters on it, you remove a counter and you mill 2. Instead of something like that, it tries to be more explosive. Otherworldly Glazed Decline a bit, Darkblast, which is actually really, really good removal, which you're going to touch on, and more Ox of Agonuses. So you have the whole Narcomoeba Prize Amalgam thing going on. So it's like pretty stock. So why isn't this being hated out? I mean, again, this is the list like in its totality here. Visually, more Ox is kind of nice because you used to only play 1 Ox as like your kind of late game finisher. You wanted to be quick. And the fact that Creeping Chill is still around essentially means that you have to think of like playing against Dredge, you're already at like 8 life, assuming you start at 20. 4 Creeping Chills will probably get milled out at some point throughout the course of the game. You will take 12 damage, they will gain 12 life. So that already is a big thing, right? Against the aggro strategies, like you can like subvert some of the damage they throw at you. So good, bonus there. But then when it comes to something like Endurance was supposed to be the be all end all of all graveyard decks. Lord knows it is the bane of my existence as a mill player, and no one will listen to me as to the fact that this is fundamentally the most broken elemental that they printed out of that cycle. It's just because it's an answer, not a threat like Grief and Fury is. But of course, I'm a biased mill player, and all of y'all modern players have better opinions than me apparently, right? Like whatever. Y'all don't want to hear facts, so listen to me hate on graveyards. Endurance is supposed to be the answer to this. But where is Endurance? Endurance is the answer. It was played main board, sideboard as 2 to 3 ofs, if not kind of main board as the other 2 to 3 ofs, whatever it might be. It was there in Modern, 3 to 4 copies in a lot of decks. But if you look at the Modern metagame right now, the top 10 decks in the Modern metagame don't play Endurance. Eldrazi Ramp doesn't play Endurance. Living End doesn't play Endurance. It can, but it's not going to be a 4 of playset in the main board, especially considering there's not many other graveyard synergies happening. Amulet Titan plays Endurance, and that's one of its best ways to answer graveyard strategies. To be fair, though, in a lot of ways, the Endurance is probably just as equally, if not more, for the mill matchup, but it's really for the graveyard matchup. But the Amulet Titan players like to lie to you here. And Domain Zoo's not playing it. Ruby Storm's not playing it, right? Like Domain Zoo, they have Giganta, they can play it. Ruby Storm, they're using green for Veil of Summer. Goryo's Vengeance is a good deck. Living End is a good deck. There are graveyard synergies, but it's not that, prevalent. Grinding Station, this is probably where you start hitting the tier 2 stuff. Through the Breach, doesn't want it either. There is no Endurance. But that's because like the graveyard strategies aren't really that relevant. Living End can be seen as like a combo deck. If you can stop the combo, you don't really care about the graveyard portion of it. Goryo's Vengeance is very all in, but it has a mid-range plan because it can play Psychic Frog. Yawgmoth is probably the best deck in this metagame to play Endurance. Even Amulet Titan, fair enough. You could argue it's a better deck to play Endurance, but it probably doesn't want to play it half the time. It really only plays like 1 to 2 copies. It will play the 1 copy because you can then tutor for it, but that means the average amount of times that you're really going to see it is going to be a lot lower, because when they're going to tutor for it, tutor for a creature, it's probably going to be for their Titan or for their Dryad of the Elysian Grove to start grinding you out. It's probably not going to be tutor for Endurance. Most of the times I've seen tutor for Endurance out of the Amulet deck, it's for the mill player. A lot of times you're not going to see it out of the Titan player. There are no Endurances at the top of the metagame. The number 1 answer to graveyards for free on turn 0 does not exist at the top of the metagame, which leaves a gaping hole for Dredge to swoop in and actually blow everyone out of the water. I mean, look at the most played cards in Modern, right? This is a screen that I think many of you are used to seeing at this point. I've showed a couple of my videos. Look, Mountain is in 47% of decks. Let's ban Mountain. It's getting ridiculous. Mountain is in 47% of decks. We need to wake up and ban basics. The One Ring is pretty much in 50% of decks, blah, blah, blah. Look at the creatures. There's no Endurance here. Let's break it down. Let's go to view more. Endurance is at number 15. It's played in 12% of decks at 2.5 copies on average, teetering between 2 and 3. That's probably 2 in the sideboard if you play 3-1 in the main board. Maybe 2 in the main board, 1 in the sideboard. Your sideboard needs to do more because graveyards don't really matter. It's not like Mill's at the top right now either, and graveyards don't matter either. So what's the point? You don't really need it. You need to be able to answer energy. You need to be able to answer the One Ring. Why play Endurance? That's the beauty of the situation, folks. The energy decks have pushed out the need for Endurance, which creates this gaping hole, because energy doesn't care about the elementals, largely speaking. The other most played elemental is Subtlety. Subtlety doesn't answer the One Ring. Subtlety answers Teferi, and it answers your, I don't know, your Raptor. I thought it doesn't really, to be fair, based on how the Raptor works, but fine. It does that. Galvanic Discharge, just a representation of the energy package. Again, the energy package demands more. It goes wide, it can play the mid-range when you play Mardu, and it plays the One Ring to get over top of you. You're either playing Mardu to answer the One Ring with Orcish Bowmasters, against like maybe a little bit against the Frogtide decks, but then the Boros deck is just like faster a lot of time. The Boros deck can beat the Frogtide decks. It's just the energy decks can't really beat the combo decks. So the combo decks can prey on that. But there's no graveyard decks in the middle of all that. I mean, Johnny's like, it goes wide. It goes really far. And then it has the finisher on the 0. You build a wide board, you just get in front of people. You need to hate this out. You need board wipes, you need interaction, you need removal. No one cares for graveyard hate. The One Ring also, in this vacuum, is really slow. When you think about how Dredge plays out its average game, the One Ring is too expensive. Even the energy decks are playing it on curve. They're playing it on 4. They're not ramping out to it. And so that's the key thing here. If the best card in the metagame right now is too slow, how do we exploit that with that deck? The deck that says the One Ring is too slow for me. And even if you play the One Ring, you will not find the answer you need, because all you'll be able to do is build out your board. It doesn't matter. I'll just cast a Conflagrate, or I'll just mill for free and creeping chill you out of the game. What does the One Ring do? And especially when you consider what I said at the beginning of the game, the video, where you are supposed to kind of start at like 9 to 12 life down, because you have to imagine 3 to 4 creeping chills over the course of the game is going to hit you. Once you play that One Ring, it starts being real damn painful. That's all I'm saying. It starts being real damn painful. And you start getting pinged in the air with some jellyfish, get hit with like a prized amalgam. That One Ring becomes real detrimental to you. And that is what Dredge does. And that is the beauty of it. And why Modern might be good. Because if Dredge is back and we can't play Endurance, because the decks that want to play Endurance can't beat the energy decks, but the Dredge decks can come back and beat the energy decks. Oh baby, the boomer Magic players, the boomer Modern players are here to live. We are here to take advantage of it, because Lord knows if Dredge is good, oh baby, those full surgical extractions are coming out. I mean, look, take a look at a lot of the good things happening in this list. Just look at how fast it can be. You know, you start off with the Tome Scour, you could put Prize Amalgam onto the battlefield with just a Narcomoeba coming out. And I mean, take a look at the recent tech coming out of Modern Horizons 3. We got Cephalid Coliseum, Legacy Dredge staple Cephalid Coliseum coming in to be able to have a free way to just draw 3 cards, aka Dredge 3 different cards, and discard 3 cards to further enable our graveyard. Folks, it is a thing of beauty. It is a thing of beauty. It's like Faithless Looting on a stick. You don't need Faithless Looting for red when you got it on a land. Oh, it makes me happy to hear, right? And many of you may be upset to hear that Dredge is back. But it is a sign of Modern, the mother nature of Modern fighting back. The old guard and the spirit of Modern fighting back, knowing that the busted things of old are still good. The Modern you know and love is still good, no matter how much Modern Horizons wants to take it from you, no matter how much capitalism wants to take it from you. I was watching a video earlier today. It was like a cooking channel. They're talking about how, you know, World War II cooking, and in World War II, there was apparently a time when a lot of materials for women's stockings were being, you know, it wasn't available on the home front. And a lot of that material was going towards like netting and materials on the war front. And so women with modesty still wanted to cover their legs. And so they would color them with makeup. But if that became too expensive, they would paint them with gravy. And look, you can look this up. Where I'm going with this is that ultimately, somehow I know I can blame capitalism for this. Because that's what it is. At the end of the day, I talk to my wife every day. None of us want to work. Right? We don't want to be stuck in our 9-to-5 jobs. And at some point, women didn't have to work. They could take care of the house. And all we needed to do was put men through therapy so they didn't come home and beat their wives or their kids. If we put the men through therapy, if we kept the woman out of the workforce and kept them happy, we at some point had tasty gravy-legged women. And capitalism took that from us. And you know what capitalism will not take from you? Because with the consenting partner, you can still have tasty gravy-legged men, women, whoever. And just like that, capitalism will not take away the old guard of Modern from you. Dredge is alive and well. Endurance is not a playable card right now. Energy is everywhere. The One Ring is here to beat you down, but Dredge is here to give you that hug. That cold, like freezing chill of a spooky season hug. Dredge is here for you. For all of you Modern old guard, I mean, look at a card like Wonder. I mean, doesn't it fill you with a sense of joy? As long as Wonder is in your graveyard and you control land and creatures you control have flying. I mean, you're worried about blockers? Folks, we're flying over top. We're flying over top, baby. Put this as a one of, fly over top. Darkblast, really relevant as a card. I, for one, as an ex-Dredge player, many of you longtime listeners to the channel will know I'm an ex-Dredge player, so I'm really excited. Let me know in the comment section down below if you want to see me run through a league of Modern Dredge, because I'm really excited to do that, let me tell you. Darkblast as a card, -1/-1, Dredge 3. I have a signed Dredge playlist, a signed Darkblast playmat, and a foil signed Darkblast. That's how much I love this card. You can do real tricky things with this. -1/-1, yeah, you can kill a lot out of the energy decks. You can kill an Orcish Bowmasters on the Mardu version. You can kill like the cat tokens, the Ocelot Pride, like a lot of stuff. Darkblast, though, you can do really tricky things. Like on your upkeep, you could Darkblast a 2/2. then it's in your graveyard. Instead of drawing, you dredge back the Darkblast, and then you can -1/-1. So it gives you an opportunity to potentially kill a frog. I get it, they have to be empty-handed, but you might be able to like force a card out of their hand, which like could be relevant. So if they have like 2 cards, you expect they have Force of Negation. This could be a good way for you to like, you know, force that Force Negation, or just get a card out so they don't have that counter. Like there are niche scenarios where like doing tricky stuff like that is important, but Darkblast, a surprisingly relevant card again in this modern metagame. Of course, if you're playing something like Eldrazi, just take it out, fine, you're probably not killing anything there, but again, really happy to see a card like this back. And Life from the Loam I specifically want to mention because it's not being played now, but in a world where Dredge wants to grind and graveyard decks want to play the slow game where you add a bunch of lands to your hand and then conflagrate for like big lethal, that's not where Dredge wants to be now, because it ultimately does realize like, yeah, once the One Ring comes down, it can't, like the opponent can eventually come back in the game. So you don't want to play that grind game. Conflagrate's largely in the sideboard. You probably are playing like 1 copy in the main board. Let's be honest. You want to have that option to you, but without Life from the Loam, it's not the most valuable thing in the world. So if you have to play a slower game, you know the opponent's going to control you out. Conflagrate has a lot of value, but you don't have the synergy with Life from the Loam. I don't think we will see this card come back again, because if things slow down, Dredge will play Life from the Loam, but if things slow down, people have more time to find their answers to beat Dredge. Dredge doesn't want to slow down and play Life from the Loam. We're not in that metagame anymore. The answers are too good. And so that's why we don't see Life from the Loam right now. Dredge is Grixis. It's not, it doesn't include green. It's not Sultai or anything like that. Or 4-color, I should say. There was a big time when Dredge wasn't playing blue, but it seems like now, especially with Faithless Looting gone, you still have like Cathartic Reunion and stuff. There was a time when a lot of folks were running the Boros one. It was white and red, and it did something similar. I think it was like Thrill of something. Maybe I might be remembering that wrong. But again, Life from the Loam doesn't need to make a comeback. So all in all, capitalism took the things you love from you. But Modern Horizons 2 and the corporate greed of Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro and capitalistic forces will not take away the old God of Modern from you. Now is one of the better times to be alive playing Modern, folks. Dredge is back, which means some of your other Modern decks can be back as well. We might just be looking at Modern through the wrong lens. I hope this video can give you some hope, because it excites me to my damn core, and it gets me more excited to play some Modern.